Good morning, everybody. We've got a mixed trade in the grain markets here early on Friday morning. It is 6:30 a.m. Central Time. December corn unchanged at 5.59 and a quarter. January soybeans down 3 and a quarter at 12.19 and a half. December Chicago wheat up 2 3/4 at 7.76 and a half. December Kansas City wheat up 1 at 7.87. December spring wheat up 5 cents at 10.22. If you guys are listening on the podcast, leave me a rating or review. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Help me to reach my goal of 5,000 subscribers. We are up above 3,100. So if you are watching consistently, if you like what I have to say here, hit that subscribe button, help me out. Hit the like button, leave me a comment if you have some sort of comment on the markets, on anything I say here, on any sort of crop, harvest, weather update. Keep the conversation going. If you need some additional assistance from me, guys, go to my website. It is www.standardgrain.com. Check out the subscription service, guys. Click on Grain Marketing Plan here in the upper right-hand corner. For $49.99 a month, I send out a ton of information to my subscribers. Most of my subscribers are farmers. They're seeking additional information on the market. They're interested in how to market grain more effectively, different sort of strategies, and that's the sort of information I provide via my morning email, which goes out every business day just before I start these live streams. There's a text message service, my subscriber-only videos and content. I really get into grain marketing specifically, among other topics. This is a monthly deal. You can cancel it at any time. There's no other fee. There's no other obligation. I won't try to sell you anything else. Certainly check that deal out this weekend, guys. There is a group of bipartisan governors that is seeking YearRound E15 in their states, and they sent a letter to the Biden administration yesterday asking for guidance on this sort of action. This was a quote here. "In the wake of the court decision, we are exploring all of our options to ensure retailers are able to sell E15 to consumers all year without interruption." And the court decision that they're talking about is the one that struck down YearRound E15, I believe, back in July. This deal includes a bunch of, Corn Belt state governors, Iowa, Minnesota. I'm assuming there were a bunch of other ones. Don't take my map in my YouTube video here at face value here. I just pulled a map of the Corn Belt. I'm not sure which states were involved or not. But, the federal government seems non-cooperative in this E15 issue. So the Corn Belt states at this point are trying to kind of go it alone and achieve some sort of state-by-state solution. So good luck to them. Hope it happens. We'd like to see something on the federal level. But in any case, I suppose you could paint that as being a positive. The corn market for next year in particular, D's 22 corn, continues to improve versus November 22 soybeans. And I did a video on this last week or 2 weeks ago regarding potential acreage outcomes next year. The way that the ratio is set up right now, it's about 2.24 to 1. That would, in a normal year, favor more corn acres, of course. And the people that look at this ratio and use this ratio are traders and academics. Farmers don't look at this. Farmers look at crop rotations, budgets. In a year like 2022, fertilizer prices in particular, fertilizer availability. So if this were a normal year, traders and academics would look at this chart, which is on my screen here, and say, we are at 2.24 to 1. We are going to absolutely favor more corn acreage in 2022. But 2022 is not a normal year, or will not be a normal year, because of skyrocketing fertilizer prices, just simple lack of availability in some areas. So despite this, which, on paper in a vacuum would say, hey, more corn acreage, 2022 is different. And I think that there's still certainly some fear that corn acreage may be lost. There are all sorts of different estimates floating around. It's very early in the ball game there. Soybean export sales improved last week. Net sales 1.86 million. That was up 58% on the week, up 19% from the prior 4-week average. China was the largest buyer, accounting for 65% of the weekly total. We were up actually 22% versus the same week last year. Now, despite that improvement, and I talk about this every week, despite the improvement, total accumulated soybean sales, export sales for the marketing year, are 33% behind last year's pace. USDA is projecting a decline in soybean exports of only 7% this year. Traders noted yesterday that there are still Brazilian beans that are competitive to China. right now, and this is typically the big export window for the United States. So you had the big setback as a result of the hurricane at the Gulf, which was September, and that set us back 45 days is what it did essentially. And you had a record Brazilian crop last year. You're in the process of planting a record Brazilian crop this year. You've got a plummeting Brazilian currency, all sorts of issues that have just hindered U.S. export activity when it comes to soybeans. The USDA in next week's report is they're going to cut their export projection for soybeans in all likelihood. By how much, I don't know. They may take the slow approach, but there are a lot of traders and analysts out there who believe that the soybean carryout number, which is currently being projected at 320 million bushels for the United States on August 31st of next year, that number may be closer to 500 or even more by the time this is all said and done. Keep in mind, you've probably got a bigger U.S. crop estimate coming next week. You've probably got a decline in exports coming next week. I imagine that domestic processors, crushers, make up or pick up some of the slack, but I don't think it's going to be enough to offset the exports. So you've got an issue here. There's a reason why the soybean market is acting the way that it's acting. Corn export sales also improved last week. Weekly net sales, 1.22 million metric tons. That was up 37% on the week, but down 53% versus the same week last year. Your export book in corn is the second best on record. It's now 6.5% behind last year's record pace. USDA projects that exports of corn will decline by 9% this year. So we could very easily still meet or exceed the target. I think China remains a concern here, though. China hasn't bought corn in a long time, since the spring, and their shipments are down versus where they had been last year. So there's some concern, I suppose, that, hey, China hasn't bought anything, and they've got these sales on the books, but shipments are down. Do they actually take what they've even bought at this point? Could cancellations become an issue in the future? These are all questions that we just can't know the answer to right now. Heavy rains in Argentina over the last week have helped the country's crops. This was a quote from the grain exchange there. The improvement in soil moisture over the last few days has allowed planting and development of crops to advance. The country's corn crop is 28.4% planted. The soybean crop is 7.1% planted. They had just some warm and dry conditions generally to start the season, but it's shifted pretty quickly. U.S. weekly jobless claims fell to a COVID-era low, 269,000. That was below analyst expectations. So we have continued to trend in the right direction here as a result of jobless claims. Weekly jobless claims spiked to 6.1 million in April of 2020. This chart that's on my screen and that statistic, the drastic, just off the charts spike in jobless claims, in unemployment, all that stuff, this will go down in history as one of the most significant. It was actually more of a health policy, but it turned into an economic policy. It will go down as one of the most significant decisions that the U.S. government has ever made in regard to anything. I try not to get political here ever. That will not do us any good. This is not a show regarding politics. But in any case, a lot of things happened in spring of 2020. We were presented with this new virus. We didn't know what it was. And we had lockdowns at the federal level, the state level, the local level. I think there's a big question out there as to was the lockdowns, was that worth this that's on my screen? Was it worth just total economic destruction that continues to last to this day and will continue to last for a long time? I think a lot of things happened. I think the government was certainly concerned about health, but at the same time, the golden rule of politics is that you do not let a good crisis go to waste. And they milked this thing for all it was worth when it came to economics and money. They printed trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in the name of COVID and healthcare. Billionaires got richer, millionaires got richer. All of our public servants in Congress are millionaires and have gotten richer during COVID. A lot of this doesn't make sense on an economic front, and I talk more about markets than politics. Keep in mind, guys, we had both a Republican and a Democratic president preside over all of this, so this is not a political issue at all. The cattle market yesterday backed off just a little bit, but the cash market's been better this week, and we'll see if we can improve this week. U.S. dollar is up ahead of the cash open. The S&P's up 10. The Dow's up 50. The bonds are up a little bit. Crude oil's up 60 cents, 79.40. Backed off a little bit from those highs just from yesterday, I believe. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.